Welcome back, beautiful and amazing people. Doc Genzo here with another duel video for you. Today we got a real doozy of one. We're showcasing one of the newer decks now, branded DESPIA, which you're going to see on the right here as he normal summons an Alu Bear, which is going to get a Fet Veiler right off the gate. Cross out Designator being chained though. All the negates here, folks. There is no room for quarter on the branded DESPIA player side. And then we also have INVOKED DOGMATIKA on the left side of the table here. A little bit more of a simplistic deck in the chains that it runs, but that does not diminish its effectiveness, as you'll see here. So Ash Blossom now going to be chained. There's the nice little Ash Blossom edit. Her just saying no there to the branded fusion. Sorry about the glare on the right side though. The person playing Dogmatika invoked is going to be Clay, and Chandler is the guy on the right playing DESPIA branded. Now it's going to be a little bit of a kind of sort of a strange matchup here, as this is the week that this was filmed the week that the structured decks dropped. So some of the cards are still kind of new, so you're gonna see I will cut out the parts of them pausing and to read some of the cards and everything, but for now we're just gonna go with the simple cards that pretty much everybody knows what they do. Alistair, normal summoning, grabbing invocation, invocation being activated. Invocation, everybody knows what that is pretty much. Going into an invoke makeable right off the gate with that Fet Veiler that he dumped, not even linking off into a secure Gardener with that Almirage there. Just a astounding play there as he goes ahead and swings into the Alu Bear. It did take a total of 2 hand traps to stop the branded DESPIA player though, because once they get going, you want to stop them early, because once they get going, they can just extend, as you'll see on later in this match. As you can see in his hand, he's pretty much stocked up with spells there. Just needs to get a good monster in order to take advantage here, especially with that branded in red in his hand. That branded in red, very underrated card whenever it first came out. Still kind of underrated to a degree. Granted, it's also not as good as, like, say, Branded Opening or anything like that, but it's still an astounding card. Branded coming into their own is actually really cool to me, because the lore is amazing. Chandler, the guy playing it, actually was saving his Alu Bears just for this, because, and sorry if me calling it Alu Bear is kind of bad, but you know how it is. People call it a Luber. I like to call it Alu Bear because, you know, it sounds a little bit more fancy that way, I suppose. But anyways, he's more of a fan of the lore aspect of it, so you'll see him playing a bit more of the branded cards instead of some of the more mainstream builds that you'll see. But at the same time, he does take into account the mainstream strategies for it, so you'll definitely see some cards, and also some cards that some spice of his own that he's thrown in there that's really nice. Like you see with that Spriggan monster that came in the structure deck, you see that it's a. I don't really, well, granted, I don't know a lot of the deck lists for it because it's still kind of a new deck, but I would not imagine that is one of the cards that's mainly run. Going into a Despian Caritas now. Caritas, very good card, very expensive card now. A lot of the Despia cards went up in price. Caritas basically making anything that's level 8 or lower 0. Anything that's not a level 8 or higher fusion monster 0 during the main phase on either player's turn, basically. And also basically just floats, which is really nice. High attack, etc., etc. So, looks like Makeaba's going to attempt to negate one of the monsters that got banished off of the branded in red, because whenever they're banished, they get effects as well. Looks like he's going to try and chain Caritas, but Makeaba is level 9 fusion, so it still stays the same attack. It is a very easy condition to forget. I've forgotten it myself whenever I used to play the deck. Attempting to swing into the Almirage now. Almirage chaining its effect to destroy itself, so basically no damage will be taken because he doesn't want to swing his Caritas into the Makeaba. And then just passing the turn on that. Now, giving us a nice little look at the camera there as well, knowing that he's a little bit behind in this duel right now, with 1 card in hand, a lot in the grave. Those 2 hand traps at the start really hindered his ability here, but we'll see if he comes back, because branded definitely are very good at coming back. Normal summoning Alistair once again, attempting to use the effect to search for an invocation. The loop continues, folks. It's just getting Alistair back to hand, searching invocation, getting Alistair back to hand, searching an invocation after using the invocation, etc., etc., etc. Now it looks like he's going to go into an Invoke Purgatrio here with the Salamangreat Almirage. Which he indeed does. Tend to use Coritis now, but Makeup's gonna negate and banish. However, Coritis is very, very unique in his ability to float, because it says if he leaves the field by an opponent's card, you could special summon a Fallen of Albaz or Despia from your deck. Now, since he was banished, he gets to summon from the deck, but Clay got a little ahead of himself there, putting the invocation back in deck, grabbing the Alistair to hand before the stuff hit the board. But it is what it is. So now Fallen of Albaz is getting summoned, then using the effect on summon to basically super poly, but you can still respond to it. Using the Makeup and the Albaz now, maybe. Yes, indeed, using the Makeup and the Albaz to go into one of the newer fusions, a Mirror Jade Dragon. I do not know the exact full name of it, but I do know it is Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade is an astounding card. People are running, and also shaking the camera there a little bit, and that'll be a continuing theme in this video, shall we say. But yes, Mirror Jade, very good card. Lets you send a fusion from your extra deck to the grave to that notes Fallen of Albaz to banish a monster on your opponent's board, and then it gains that monster's attack for the turn. And I believe it also floats, I'm not quite sure. Again, the full effect I have not quite read, but it is Mirror Jade Dragon. And so it's going to banish the Purgatrio. Brain Diffusion now being activated on Dogmatika's side. Not sure how I feel about that. Just, oh my gosh. Power cards go brrrr, I suppose. Just, I mean, it works for the deck, I suppose, but not a big fan of just running engines willy-nilly. And granted, I'm guilty of it, so, you know, it's the pot calling the kettle black, but it is what it is. But yes, going into Brand Fusion using Ghost Ogre and Albaz to go into his own Albion, actually. Albion the Branded Dragon. Then Albion letting him fuse on Summon, using itself and the Albaz to go into his own Mirror Jade. And looks like he's going to use his Mirror Jade to hit Chandler's Mirror Jade. And, jeez Louise, you know, it's a, it's definitely one of those games whenever a Mirror Jade hits a Mirror Jade, or a Cross-Out hits a Cross-Out, etc., etc. But at the same time, it's still good. So, looks like he will definitely be hitting that Mirror Jade. And also, he's locked into fusions for the rest of the turn. See what happens here as the Mirror Jade blows up everything at the end phase. Because it's basically just like a Elemental Hero Absolute Zero at end phase that just blows up all the monsters whenever it's whenever it leaves the field by an opponent's card, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments. Trell making a cameo appearance, shall we say. Haven't seen one of those in a long time. Drawing for turn on the Despia side now. He looks like he drew an ad libitum. That's not really something you want to see in your hand too bad, but Brand Diffusion being activated looks like we're going to go to game 2. Game 2 now starting us off. Terraforming on the INVOKED Dogmatika side, getting himself a Magical Meltdown. Attempting to activate it, searching for an Alistair, the Invoker. Normal summoning the Invoker, attempting to add Invocation. Looks like there will be no interruptions on the Despia player side, but you do see his hand is a little stacked. So we'll see how that, like, in a good or bad way, depending, we'll see where that takes him in this game. As Alistair is now being linked off, I suppose, looking into his extra deck, seeing what he wants to do here. Or actually banishing, because it looks like he's setting up for a Pot of Prosperity play. Indeed, it is a Pot of Prosperity, banishing 3 to basically Pot of Duality the top 3, but he can still special summon this turn, but he cannot draw cards by card effects for the rest of the turn, and the opponent takes any damage is halved. Looks like he's got a pretty good selection here. He's got a Branded Fusion, he's got Dogmatika Ecclesia, and he's got an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Ash Blossom, there are times when you want to grab it. Branded Fusion is definitely one of those like Fusion Destiny targets. You might want to grab it, but it's also might be good in the deck. And depending on if he has a starter in his hand, he might want to grab the Ecclesia here. Let's see what he goes for. Looks like he's eyeing that Ecclesia pretty strongly here, folks, and looks like he's going to grab that. Looks like he didn't really draw any more of the starters that he wanted aside from Alistair, which, again, is really all you need in an Invoke deck, as long as it doesn't get negated or something. But you know what they say about Invoke players? They always have the Invocation in hand, even if you negate the Alistair. As you see right there, he had it in his... Or no, I guess he actually searched it, my apologies. But looks like he's going to go into Secure Garden off an Almirage, linking off the Alistair, basically, to go into an Invoke Makeup. One wonders why he didn't go into just Artemis here, get that extra deck slot, but He might not have one. Artemis is still kind of up there in price, so it's a bit iffy. But some people do prefer the Secure Gardener route just because it adds that extra target in the grave for Purgatrio to fusion. So it looks like he's going to attempt to activate Invocation in the grave. Ghost Bell being chained to negate it. It's shaking the camera once again. That's how bad that negate was. Just shaking the entire room there, folks. Call by being chained to the Ghost Bell, negating the effect, putting that Invocation back in the deck, adding the Alistair back to hand from the banished pile. You do not want that loop being interrupted there, folks. Dogmatika Cliche now being special summoned in order to search for any Dogmatika card from the deck. Looks like he's going to grab the Fleur-de-Lis, which should tell you that he does have the punishment in his hand, maybe. Looks like he's going to set one and pass the turn. Maybe he didn't grab the punishment, but maybe that negate is just what he wants instead, because against Branded, negates are a little bit more effective in the early game than Destruction. Destruction is very good in the late game against Branded, I'd say. As long as they don't go into Dragoon or something that cannot be destroyed anyways. Frifer Patchwork being activated now. Let's see if there's any response from Invoked Dogmatika here. He does have one negate on the board with the Makeba. Makeba is going to attempt to negate and banish that card. And yes, Makeba does negate the activation of the card. Activating a second Frifer Patchwork now, since the first one's activation was negated. The you can only activate one per turn rule does not apply there, because it was technically not activated. The activation was negated. Judge Trell over there saying as much. So it looks like he's going to add an Edge Imp and a Polymerization. 2 cards for the price of 1 from your hand. Very, very, very good. Those type of cards are astounding, especially in a format such as this. And that's some of that Chandler Spice that you see in there. I'm not quite sure if the standard builds run Frifer Patchwork, but it's definitely effective. It gets the cards that you want in your hand, it gets the fusions in your hand, and it just lets you go off to the races. A lot of consistency with that card. I'm not sure if it's just his tech, and if it is, I very much commend him for thinking of that. Looks like Alubear is going to be summoned, and then Fleur-de-Lis is going to chain to negate it, and all that activates in the hand, so it's basically an Effect Veiler that summons itself, which is very nice. And also the Alubear getting negated is also nice in that you don't want him getting that Branded Fusion from the deck. But it looks like Branded Opening is going to be chained to that, discarding a card now to special summon or add to hand a Despia monster. Looks like he's going to, or a Fallen of Albaz, I believe. One or the other. I don't know. Didn't really read the effect while it was up on the screen. My apologies. Looks like Despian Tragedy is going to be summoned off the Branded Opening. And then Polymerization is going to be activated. The Makeba negate already being used, so you cannot use it again. It looks like he's going to fuse 2 from the field, 1 in the hand. I think we know where this is going. Into a nice big Chimera Boy, level 9, 3300 attack. Just a lot of multiples of 3 in that card, because it does have 3 heads. Guardian Chimera being summoned, it can pop 2 cards since it used 2 monsters from the field. And Despian Tragedies and Edge Imp Chain are also going to let him search. Again, there's that consistency. There's that ability to extend, and it just basically makes it to where he's not negging himself basically at all by fusion summoning. Even if the fusion summon is negated, he'll still be able to get some effects. So looks like he's going to try and get a Frifer Patchwork off the Edge Imp Chain. And looks like he's going to be searching for something off the effect of Despian Tragedy. Adding an Alubear, the Jester of Despia, from his deck to his hand off the Despian Tragedy. Alubear, very much worth a pretty penny right now. And it's just, yeah, it is definitely worth a lot of money. And then getting a draw as well. So let's see what happens here with that Guardian Chimera being on the board. Guardian Chimera going to pop the Makeba and the back row, and that is a 3300 beat stick as well. Very good card on release, and still a great card. It's just having to use your own monsters makes it a bit iffy, but at the same time it would make it really, really broken as a super poly target if you didn't. So kind of glad they put that restriction on it. Swinging into the Fleur-de-Lis, he knows the dangers of that card. That card being able to buff everything on attack declaration is crazy. especially when it only takes 2 of those buffs to get over said Guardian Chimera if he doesn't pop it already with some of the other card effects, because Invoked can get a little wacky that way. Looks like he's going to set one and pass the turn here. Let's see what Clay has in store for him on his side of the board. Normal summoning an Alistair, now attempting to go grab that invocation once again. Let's see if there's a response here. Chaining a Branded in red to the activation of Alistair, and then Ghost Spell is going to be chained to that to negate, and shaking the camera once again there. But yeah, that Branded in red getting negated by the Ghost Spell is just, it's not the best thing. It's not a thing that you want to see happen. It definitely hurts, but at the same time, you got to watch out for hand traps, especially this format, because hand traps are definitely a bit more prevalent with Branded being out now. Going into a Verte Anaconda now just for that extra fusion summon if anything else happens. A little bit extra pressure just in case, especially if this invocation does not go through, because again, hand traps, not only an DOGMATIKA thing, it can also be in the Branded Despia build. It can be in any build. It's just hand traps. They're just good at the moment. Some better than others, but we'll see how it goes here as he goes into another invoked Makeuba here. And then putting the invocation back to grab back the Alistair. Looks like he's now going to pay 2,000 for the Verte, getting a Super Poly out, getting that Guardian Chimera, and the Verte Anaconda off the board. But it looks like he cannot, as it looks like he did banish his target off the Pot of Prosperity earlier in the game. Unfortunate, unfortunate. Looks like instead he's just going to be sending the typical DPE engine here to put a Destroy Phoenix Enforcer out for a little bit of that extra pressure since the Super Poly did not go through. One might argue it might be the better play against something like Branded Despia, especially knowing that the opponent has an Aloubert in the hand. But at the same time, it might not be. We'll just have to wait and see, folks. Attempting to use DPE now to pop the Verte and the Guardian Chimera on the board, but it looks like Branded Opening is going to protect the Chimera, since it can banish itself from the grave to protect a level 8 or higher fusion monster from being destroyed by a card effect. So the Verte is going to get popped, and the Guardian Chimera is here to stay. Now let's see if there's anything that Chandler can do to pull this match out. Attempting to activate a Fright for a Patchwork now. Looks like Makeup is going to let that go through, knowing that he has an Alistair only in the hand and that he might not want to use it to negate with Makeup. May make a difference in this matchup. Adding an Edge Imp Chain and a Polymerization from the deck to the hand. Getting 2 cards for the price of 1. Definitely not bad. And shaking my camera. Also, well, I'd say that is pretty bad. Looks like he's going to attempt to enter battle phase with the Guardian Chimera here. DPE is going to trigger to blow it up now. And there's no Branded Opening to protect it this time. But let's see if that was all part of the strategy. Let's see if Aloubert wants to activate, or maybe not. Let's see what happens here. As now a Imperm is going to be activated targeting the Makeuba. And so Makeuba can no longer negate this Aloubert. There's the effect of Infinite Impermanence if you need it. We're in main phase 2 now. Normal summoning that Aloubert to let him get any branded card from the deck. Looks like he's going to grab a Branded Fusion here. Let's see if this is going to be the match here as he activates the Branded Fusion to fuse from the deck. Again, just that consistency. The amount of consistency to basically put out big monsters with these fusions and adding stuff back to hand from the deck is just incredible. Sending a secret rare, looks like Fallen of Albaz, and Despian Tragedy from the deck. To go into another new card, Lubellion. I actually do know what this one does to a degree. So this one's basically like Albaz the Branded Dragon, but instead of banishing, it shuffles stuff back into the deck. But you do have to discard a card for it. So it looks like he's going to discard that Edge Imp Chain. And he's going to add Ad Libitum of Despia to his hand off the effect of Despian Tragedy. He's going to put back the Fallen of Albaz and put back something else. Again, there's that consistency. There's that ability to just recycle cards, put them back. You're never starving for cards in a deck like this, folks. As you can see. You can start off with a pretty okay hand and still be able to make an astounding board off it. Looks like he's going to attempt to fuse the Guardian Chimera and the Fallen of Albaz in his graveyard here. Let's see what he fuses them into here. Looks like he's eyeing that Mirror Jade in his extra deck there, and looks like he is going to be putting that onto the board. Mirror Jade back once again. Really good artwork card, really cool artwork card. And the lore behind the Despia and Albaz and stuff as well is just great. If you haven't already, pick up at least one of the structure decks just for that little lore poem that they have on one of the on the underside of some of the play mats that they put in the deck. But yeah, Mirror Jade is going to use his effect to banish the Makeba, but he already attempted to go into his battle phase this turn, so it does look like that he will not be able to kill. Activating Polymerization now using the Ad Libitum and the Mirror Jade. Very interesting choice there. I don't know. It's interesting that he did not attempt to use the Alu Bear instead, but we'll see where his mind's at after this, because that Ad Libitum will be able to bring something back from the graveyard. Going into Masquerade now, another card that jumped up pretty high in price here, especially because of a deck like this. Very pretty penny card there. Mirror Jade being summoned back off the Ad Libitum being sent to the graveyard by card effect there. Again, just the value of all these Despia cards being put on display here. And now he's going to be able to search his deck thanks to Albion the Branded Dragon. Adding a branded in red and setting it. Drawing for turn on Invoke DOGMATIKA's side now, and as you can see, he was in a bit of... Chandler was in a little behind in the duel, shall we say, in terms of monsters and effects, because of the DPE and Makeba just putting a little bit more pressure on him than he expected, especially with the negates. But being able to build that big of a board in that kind of state just goes to show the power of this new deck. And looks like now he's going to attempt to special summon Alistair off the effect of Dasher in the draw phase. So special summoning Alistair, and then maybe branded in red being activated in draw phase as well, which can be done. It is a quick play spell, and it looks like he is going to do that indeed. Adding Despia or Fallen of Albaz from his graveyard to his hand, and then basically fusion summoning by banishing the materials into a level 8 fusion. So it looks like he's going to add that Ad Libitum of Despia to his hand and then fuse. Let's see if he uses that Alu Bear, or let's see if he uses something else. Actually, he's adding Tragedy. My apologies, the glare is actually pretty bad. But it looks like he's going to banish the Lubellion, the Tragedy, and the Alu Bear to go into Guardian Chimera once again. And then Tragedy is going to let him search. Adding a Despian Comedy, maybe. No, opting for the Alu Bear instead. And drawing off Chimera. With a quick flourish of his hand there, popping the Alistair that was special summoned off the effect of Dasher. And then now we're in standby. That was all in draw phase, by the way. Standby, DPE coming back. And as you'll notice, he does have to pay 600 for each effect that he activates. Clay does, because of the Masquerade. So, normal summoning Alistair and then attempting to use that effect to add an invocation. Mirror Jade does not affect him as much with this now that he has an Alistair in the graveyard. So that invocation is going to be live regardless of whether Mirror Jade decides to banish the Alistair on the field. Looks like he's going to set that invocation and then attempt to use Celestial to draw 2 and see where this goes. Realizing there's nothing left he can do here, that'll be game. Despia Branded take the match.